Hi everybody, I'm Doug Wingate, and I just wanted to make a brief video introducing neural network acupuncture, discuss kind of where it's coming from, the foundations, and how I apply it in my clinical practice. So neural network acupuncture is coming from the latest in neuroscience and neuroimaging in terms of understanding scalp acupuncture and its functions. Sort of an important thing to keep in mind, or a helpful thing to keep in mind, is that the scalp acupuncture systems that we're pretty familiar with are relatively new in the scope of the ripe, long history of Chinese medicine, which of course is thousands of years old. And the scalp systems, a lot of them were developed in the 1960s and 70s. And so you've got some systems that are working with the critical structures and their functions, and the understanding of those critical functions at that time that the system was developed. Since then, there's been huge expanses in our understanding of critical functions, brain regions, and so the 1990s was kind of dubbed the decade of the brain, because a lot of research, a lot of money, funding was poured into research on the brain, understanding its functions, and developing therapeutic approaches based on that. And then in 2009, 2010 through 2016, the Human Connectome project was undergone by some of the top universities. It was a collaboration where they did functional MRI imaging to essentially map out the structural and functional connections of the human brain. So which areas exist, what they do, and then what areas are communicating with other areas, to form an understanding of kind of what's going on up there, how it's processing signals from the brain, or from the peripheral nervous system, from the body, peripheral nervous system to the brain, and the signaling from the brain out to the body, and the body systems. And so we now have a much more thorough understanding of that communication network. We've now got a much more thorough mapping of brain regions, and what are called large-scale brain networks, where they're networks of communication that are going on all the time. That includes things like the default mode network and the central executive network. And so by understanding those things, we can get a much more functional idea of what's going on, and ways to approach that therapeutically. So with neural network acupuncture, what I've done is taken the information from the Human Connectome project, their findings, and applied that and put it within the framework of traditional scalp acupuncture points. So I've basically reevaluated each of the over 40 traditional scalp acupuncture points through the lens of our current understanding of these neural networks and neural communication pathways. So with this, the way that I apply it, I work with a lot of traumatic brain injury, a lot of concussion, a lot of stroke, and complex neurological conditions. And so if somebody has a particular brain lesion or an injury to an area, we can work with that. Sometimes you don't want to work locally, so it's great to understand other points or brain regions that have a direct line of communication with an affected area. Or if deeper cortical structures or subcortical structures like the midbrain are affected, knowing what areas near the surface of the brain directly communicate with that, and you can sort of manipulate and modulate that communication pathway as well to facilitate healing and re-regulation. So that's just a real brief breakdown of where I'm coming from. I just released my new book, An Atlas of Neural Network Acupuncture. It's really a clinic guide book or reference book, laying out. The first section is laying out the Human Connectome findings, and so going through and understanding what regions exist, their communication pathways, what areas they're communicating with, and associated acupuncture points. And then the second section is taking a look at the traditional points over the scalp, and taking a look at them through the lens of the connectome and neural network understanding, knowing both locally what regions that point can stimulate or work with, and then non-locally what other areas it's communicating with, and how we might be able to influence that in a therapeutic manner to help people out. So hopefully that's helpful. And feel free to, if you want some more information, feel free to go to my website, www.acuneuromodulation.com, and I've got a bunch of resources on there as well as links to that book and some others that I've written. Thank you.